Hold still for a moment, because what you are about to understand may change the way you see this entire connection forever. Yes, your soulmate may be with someone else right now. Talking to them. Laughing with them. Standing beside them. Perhaps even trying to build something that looks like love from the outside. But what you do not see, what no one around them can see, is the silent storm happening beneath their smile. Because presence does not always mean connection. And being beside someone does not mean the heart has arrived. There is a difference between company and destiny. A difference between attention and alignment. A difference between temporary comfort and the soul recognizing where it truly belongs. And that difference is beginning to haunt them. You may think they have forgotten you. You may believe they moved on without looking back. You may wonder if the story is over before it ever began. But if it were over, why does your spirit still feel them? Why does your intuition keep whispering their name when logic says let go? Why does something deep within you refuse to believe this chapter has ended? Because what is meant for you often moves through confusion before it moves into clarity. Listen carefully. The person they are with now may offer attention. They may offer distraction. They may offer a version of peace. But what they cannot offer is the feeling your energy awakened inside them. That is what troubles them. Because after someone has felt a rare connection, ordinary affection no longer satisfies. They can try to force it. Try to pretend. Try to convince themselves that good enough is enough. Yet every quiet moment betrays them. Every laugh that feels slightly empty. Every conversation that lacks depth. Every touch that does not spark what they once felt. And slowly, they begin comparing what they have to what their soul remembers. That is what you do not see. You do not see the pauses in their mind when your memory suddenly interrupts their day. You do not see the strange silence that falls over them in the middle of happy moments. You do not see the way they stare into space sometimes, trying to understand why something still feels missing. Because they thought being with someone else would erase you. They thought distance would weaken the connection. They thought time would make your presence fade. Instead, your absence made your value louder. Sometimes people only understand what a soul meant to them when they stand beside someone else and still feel alone. Read that again in your spirit. Sometimes the wrong connection is not punishment, it is contrast. It is life showing them what almost love feels like, so they can finally recognize real love when destiny places it before them again. And here is the part most people never talk about. Their current situation is teaching them. Teaching them what they truly need. Teaching them what they cannot fake. Teaching them what their heart refuses to settle for. Every moment they spend in misalignment is bringing them closer to the truth. Closer to awakening. Closer to clarity. Closer to realizing that no matter how far they run, some connections do not disappear. They wait. And perhaps the most shocking part of all. They may not even fully understand yet why they cannot stop thinking about you. They may call it confusion. They may call it bad timing. They may bury it under logic. But beneath every excuse, their soul knows. It knows something unfinished still exists between you. So if tonight you are wondering whether they are forgetting you, whether someone else has replaced you, whether the story ended in silence, hear this carefully. Replacement is impossible when the connection was never ordinary. A rare soul is not forgotten. A real bond is not erased by temporary distractions. And destiny is not cancelled because someone took a detour. No. Sometimes the detour is the lesson. Sometimes they must stand in the wrong place long enough to understand why your energy felt like home. But wait, because what is happening inside them now is even deeper than you realize. They are beginning to notice something unsettling. The more they try to commit elsewhere, the stronger your memory becomes. The more they attempt to move forward, the more their spirit pulls backward. The more they try to silence what they feel, the louder the inner knowing becomes. Because truth does not weaken when ignored. It grows. And soon, very soon, they will have to face a question they can no longer avoid. If this other person gives me everything I thought I wanted, then why does my soul still ache for someone else? That question changes everything. Because once a person begins asking that, their awakening has already started. And when awakening begins, nothing false can survive for long. Stay with this story. And now the hidden truth begins to surface, because what is happening behind closed doors in their current connection is far different from what the world sees. Outwardly, everything may appear normal. Photos may be posted. Smiles may be shared. Moments may look peaceful enough to convince everyone watching that they have moved on. But appearances have always been the easiest illusion to create. Because what the world sees is not what they feel when the room goes quiet. When the laughter fades, when the distractions end, when they lie awake at night beside someone who is trying to love them. Something inside them remains restless. They cannot explain it. They cannot fully confess it. But they feel it. A distance. A hesitation. A strange emptiness in moments that should feel complete. Because when the soul is tied elsewhere, even beautiful things can feel incomplete. Listen closely. Their current relationship is beginning to expose every emotion they tried to suppress. The more this other person asks for deeper commitment, the more panic quietly rises inside them. The more serious things become, the more they begin to question whether they are building on truth, or simply building because they were afraid to wait. And fear-built connections never stay stable forever. At first, they ignored the signs. They told themselves, maybe I just need more time. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe this is what mature love is supposed to feel like. But deep down, they know. Real love does not require this much convincing. Real alignment does not leave your spirit constantly uncertain. Real connection does not make your heart feel absent while your body stays present. And now, that realization is creeping in stronger every day. Even the person they are with has started sensing it. Yes, the one beside them can feel the emotional distance. Can feel that part of their heart is unreachable. Can feel that something unspoken stands between them. Can feel they are being loved only partially. Because no matter how hard someone tries, the soul cannot counterfeit full presence. And this is where everything begins to shift. Tiny arguments appear from nowhere. Misunderstandings increase. Patience grows thinner. Conversations feel heavier. Not because either person is evil. Not because the relationship is fake. But because misaligned energy always creates friction eventually. Two people can care for each other, and still not be meant for forever. That truth is painful. But it is real. And while all this unfolds, your energy remains in the background like a quiet echo they cannot escape. Sometimes they hear a song and think of you. Sometimes they see someone in public who resembles you, and their whole focus breaks. Sometimes your memory enters their mind so suddenly, it leaves them speechless. Imagine that for a moment. Trying to build a life with one person, while your heart keeps wandering toward another. That tension is becoming unbearable. And here is what many never understand. When someone suppresses true feelings for too long, those feelings do not die. They intensify. What they buried is rising again. Not gently. Not slowly. But powerfully. Because the universe has a way of bringing unfinished emotions back to the surface when the time for truth approaches. You may not hear from them yet. You may not see movement yet. But inwardly, their emotional walls are cracking. The certainty they once pretended to have is fading. The confidence they showed the world is weakening. The future they tried to force is starting to blur. And soon they will have to make a choice. Continue living in something comfortable but incomplete. Or risk everything to pursue what their soul keeps calling them toward. That choice terrifies them. Because choosing truth often requires breaking illusions first. It requires disappointing people. It requires admitting mistakes. It requires facing the fact that they may have walked away from something rare. And not everyone is brave enough to face that quickly. So if you have been wondering, why has nothing happened yet if they feel this deeply? This is why. Because awakening comes before action. Clarity comes before courage. And before someone can move toward destiny, they must first admit where they have been lying to themselves. That moment is approaching for them now. Closer than you think. And if this message resonates with what your spirit has been sensing, hold on to that feeling. Sometimes intuition notices the shift before reality reveals it. If this is speaking directly to your journey, leave a comment below with the word aligned so you can mark this moment for yourself, and subscribe if you want to keep walking this path with me. Because what happens next is the part no one sees coming. Their emotional distance will soon become impossible to hide. And in the next part, I will reveal the exact moment they realize they can no longer stay where they are, and what triggers the sudden turning point that changes everything. Then comes the moment everything changes, the instant pretending stops working. Not with fireworks. Not with some dramatic scene the world applauds. It happens in silence first. A quiet realization. A sudden emptiness. A moment where they look at the life they are building, and feel absolutely no peace. That is the turning point. Because there comes a day in every misaligned connection when the soul can no longer tolerate the lie. And for them, that day is drawing near. They are approaching a moment where something small, almost insignificant on the surface, will trigger a massive awakening inside them. A conversation. A disappointment. A broken promise. A simple glance across a room. Something will happen, and suddenly every suppressed emotion will rise at once. Not because the event itself is huge, but because it will expose what they have been avoiding all along. They are in the wrong place while their heart belongs somewhere else. And when that truth hits them fully, it will shake them. Because denial is easier before clarity. But once clarity arrives, there is no returning to ignorance. They will begin replaying everything. Every moment with you. Every unfinished conversation. Every sign they ignored. Every feeling they tried to rationalize away. They will ask themselves questions that keep them awake at night. Why did I walk away from something that felt different? Why do I still feel them after all this time? What if the peace I've been searching for was with them all along? Those questions are not casual thoughts. They are the beginning of surrender. Because once a person starts asking, "What if I was wrong?" their entire reality begins to rearrange. And this is why you were never meant to chase. Never meant to force. Never meant to beg for recognition. Because some truths cannot be taught. They must be realized. Your absence became the lesson. Your silence became the mirror. Your distance became the thing that made them confront what they truly feel. Sometimes the most powerful love is the one that steps back and lets awakening happen naturally. That is what you have done, even if you did not know it. While you were healing, while you were doubting, while you were wondering whether they forgot, your energy was still teaching them. Still calling them. Still reminding them. And soon, that inner conflict will become stronger than their fear. Stronger than their pride. Stronger than the comfort of staying where they are. Stronger than the image they tried to maintain. Because eventually, peace becomes more valuable than pretending. And when that happens, movement begins. Not because they suddenly become fearless, but because the pain of staying becomes greater than the fear of leaving. That is when people change their lives. That is when messages get typed and deleted 10 times before finally being sent. That is when someone who stayed silent for months, or years, suddenly feels unable to stay quiet another day. That is when destiny begins pulling visible events out of invisible emotions. You may think nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, everything is moving. The pressure is building. The illusion is cracking. The truth is becoming impossible for them to ignore. And when they finally accept what their soul has known all along, they will understand this. No matter who stood beside them, no one ever replaced what they felt with you. No distraction erased it. No relationship silenced it. No time destroyed it. Because some connections are not ordinary attractions. They are recognition. Soul recognition. The kind that follows a person into every room, every relationship, every attempt to move on. The kind that waits patiently until truth is finally acknowledged. So if your heart has been heavy, if your faith has been shaking, if you have wondered whether you imagined this bond, let this be your reminder. What is real does not vanish because it is delayed. What is meant for you may disappear from sight for a season, but it does not disappear from destiny. And they are beginning to understand that now. Very soon, the version of them that kept choosing confusion will fall away. And the version that chooses truth will rise. Stay ready for what comes next. And then, without warning, the silence breaks. Not because everything suddenly becomes easy. Not because fear disappears. But because there comes a moment when the heart reaches its limit. When holding back hurts more than speaking, when pretending hurts more than honesty, when distance becomes unbearable. That is the moment they are moving toward now. Because once they fully accept that what they feel for you is real, they will not be able to remain passive much longer. At first, their return may be subtle. A message they rewrite again and again before sending. A random check-in that seems casual on the surface. A reason to reach out that sounds small, but carries far more meaning underneath. Why? Because when someone knows they may have mishandled something precious, they rarely return with grand speeches first. They return carefully, testing the energy, watching your response, trying to understand whether the door is still open, or whether they waited too long. And make no mistake, they are afraid. Afraid you moved on. Afraid you no longer care. Afraid that while they were learning their lesson, you were learning how to live without them. That fear will humble them. The same person who once seemed distant, unsure, emotionally unavailable, will begin showing signs of vulnerability you have never seen before. Because awakening changes people. It softens pride. It exposes truth. It strips away performance. They may not arrive perfectly. They may not know exactly what to say. They may struggle to explain why they disappeared, why they hesitated, why they chose confusion before clarity. But their energy will reveal what words cannot. You will feel it. The sincerity. The urgency. The emotional weight behind even the simplest contact. Because this time, they are not reaching from curiosity. They are reaching from realization. And that changes everything. But hear this clearly. Their return is not just about romance. It is not merely about reunion. It is about transformation. Because when someone returns after awakening, they do not come back as the same version who left. They return changed by what life taught them in your absence. They return understanding your value. Understanding what your presence truly meant. Understanding how rare it is to find someone whose energy lingers even in separation. That is the kind of return that matters. Not temporary emotion. Not lonely impulse. Not convenience. Truth. And when truth finally drives someone's actions, their steps become undeniable. You may be shocked by how quickly things shift after all this waiting. Because long periods of silence often create the illusion that nothing is happening. When in reality, everything is building beneath the surface. Then suddenly, one message. One call. One unexpected appearance. And the entire story changes. That is how destiny often moves. Quietly. 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 Then all at once. So do not mistake delay for denial. Do not mistake silence for indifference. Do not mistake their current situation for the final chapter. Some people have to lose clarity before they can value it. Some people have to walk through imitation before recognizing the real thing. Some people have to stand at the edge of losing you forever, before they understand what you truly are. And if this message is finding you at the exact moment your faith was slipping, take that as your sign to stay aware. If your spirit feels this truth deeply, leave a comment below with, "I trust the timing." Sometimes declaring it changes the energy. And if you want to stay with me for the final revelation, subscribe, because the next part explains what you must do when they finally return, and the mistake that could ruin everything if you are not prepared. Because yes, they may come back. But whether this becomes the love you hoped for, or another lesson entirely, depends on what happens next. Because when they return, the greatest test will not be theirs. It will be yours. Read that again in your spirit. For so long, you have imagined the reunion. Wondered what they would say. Dreamed of the moment they finally realize your worth. But when that moment arrives, will you meet them as the version of yourself who once waited in pain? Or as the version who evolved while they were gone? That question matters more than you know. Because many people pray for someone's return, only to sabotage the blessing by receiving them from old wounds. Listen carefully. Their awakening does not automatically erase the past. Their realization does not instantly undo every delay, every silence, every moment you questioned your value. And if you are not healed enough to receive them differently than before, the same pattern can repeat. That is why this season of waiting was never only about them learning. It was about you becoming. Becoming stronger. Becoming wiser. Becoming less attached to fantasy and more aligned with truth. Becoming the kind of soul who no longer accepts half-hearted love simply because it finally arrived. Because when they return, your task is not to collapse in relief. Your task is to discern. To observe. To ask yourself, have they truly changed? Are they choosing me from clarity, or from temporary emotion? Are they ready for real love, or only afraid of losing access to my energy? These questions matter. Because not every return is meant for reunion. Some returns are closure. Some are confirmation. Some are tests to see whether you have grown beyond what once broke you. Yes, they may come back awakened. But awakening without maturity is still unstable. That is why you must remain grounded. Let them prove consistency. Let actions speak louder than emotional words. Let time reveal whether their transformation is real. Do not rush because your heart is excited. Do not ignore discernment because destiny finally seems near. Real love can handle patience. Real love can handle honesty. Real love does not fear accountability. And if what they feel is true, they will not only return. They will stay. They will show up. They will communicate. They will build with intention. They will honor what they almost lost. That is how you will know. Not through promises. Through patterns. And here is the beautiful truth hidden in all of this. Whether they return ready, or return unprepared, you still win. Because if they come back transformed, you receive the love that finally learned your worth. And if they return unchanged, you receive confirmation that your future lies beyond them. Either way, clarity comes. Either way, peace arrives. Either way, you stop living in uncertainty. That is why you were never losing in the waiting. You were being prepared. Prepared to recognize truth. Prepared to choose peace over fantasy. Prepared to understand that love is not proven by longing alone, but by aligned action. So when they stand before you again, and that moment arrives, and your heart begins racing because everything you sensed is finally unfolding, breathe. Do not rush to rewrite the story in your head. Watch. Listen. Feel. Let truth reveal itself naturally. Because this next chapter is not about whether they return. It is about whether they return worthy of the future both of you once imagined. And if they do, then everything you survived, every tear, every delay, every sleepless night questioning why this path was so difficult, will suddenly make sense. Because some love stories are not written in straight lines. They are written in separation, in lessons, in detours, in awakenings. Until both souls become ready for what destiny intended from the beginning. And if that day comes, you will not need signs anymore. You will know. Because what is real arrives with peace, not confusion. What is aligned arrives with clarity, not chaos. And what is destined, never needs to be forced. The ending of this story is closer than it appears. The only question now is, when they return to your door with truth in their heart, will you be ready to answer it?